Everyone, hope you had a great weekend. Looks like the weather's rebounding a little bit. We're here to take up a bill by the Senate. What is it, 184? And Senator Black is not available, so Representative Chairman Knight's going to be doing that for him. I just want to let the committee members know, because there's been some discussion, so we're going to just put some guidelines down just a little bit. We have a sign-up sheet. Make sure you do that. We will not hear from, or amendments will not be taken from, non-members of the committee. Other House and or Senate members will not provide testimony or offer amendments of any kind. And we're going to give a certain amount of time, specific time, to the pro and the con side on this. And I'll kind of keep you updated, but we're just going to let it fly. So, Chairman Knight, thank you so much for presenting on behalf of Senator Black to the Government Affairs Committee. Senate Bill 184.
Chairman, if you'll give me just a minute to get, I'd had some things here. If you'll give me just a second to. Mr. Chairman, I don't know if it's permissible, but these are a couple of things I don't know if this is, you're letting hand out to the committee.
Yeah. Could you get those and hand them out? I don't want it to stop testimony, because at 4:20, regardless of where you're at, we're going to go to something else on my clock that I kept right here.
Okay.
So that's presenting and asking questions. So anything else you want us to hand out?
No, that'll be it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm presenting on behalf of Senator Ellis Black today. I think he is he's at the hospital, maybe getting some treatment, I understand. So he had asked me to do this, or requested that I do this. Basically, we've got a bill before you that basically says that the regulation of dog behavior, notwithstanding any other provisions, is going to be regulated by the General Assembly. And specifically, we're speaking to breed-specific legislation. And what you have is a lot of, you're seeing a growing trend in the state of Georgia of local governments coming in and banning specific breeds of dogs. And if you look around the state, and actually around the country, and actually around the world, you're actually seeing where in the past that has gone in. People are actually undoing that and going away from breed-specific legislation. In fact, there's 19 other states that have, or right now considering, doing away with breed-specific legislation at the state level because of what's happening at the local level. Real quick, breed-specific laws do not protect our communities. Instead of holding the dog owners accountable for the behavior, the breed-specific laws only place restrictions on the owners of certain types of dogs. An owner intent on using his or her dog for a malicious purpose, such as fighting, will simply switch to another type of dog. And there are many other dogs out there that they could switch from. Breed-specific laws are difficult to enforce. You've got many instances where the local animal control can't do this. They're already under a tight, constrained budget, and so they're not able to do this. Regulations that target these specific breeds force the law enforcement officials to focus their time on breed identification. This task requires an expert knowledge of the individual breeds and is compounded when the law includes mixed breeds. In fact, you've got something that was handed out to you. If you go and look at it, go and try to guess what these breeds are and what these dogs are. I think it'll be shocking to you. In addition, this type of legislation will cause financial hardship to the responsible well, provision of fair. My apology. It is very difficult for the public officials to enforce such provisions in a fair and effective manner. Third of all, breed-specific laws are unfair to responsible owners. Many owners of the targeted breeds are extremely responsible and loving towards their pets. The breed-specific laws may prevent responsible owners from freely interacting with, showing, breeding, or performing pet therapy with their dogs. In addition, this type of legislation, again, will cause financial hardship to the owners. Breed-specific laws also increase the cost for the community. Shelter costs for the community would rise as citizens abandon these dogs that are targeted breeds at the shelter because of their inability to comply with the specific laws. In addition, the adoptable dogs of targeted breeds would be euthanized at the shelter. And basically, no matter how you wrap it up, the irresponsible folks are the ones that are going to put the dogs out on the street like they're doing right now. And all you're doing is harming the responsible pet owner. And I think one of the most important issues here is breed-specific laws are notwithstanding legal challenges. Some communities have had their breed-specific laws overturned on constitutional challenges because proper identification of what dogs would be included is difficult or impossible. Again, look at what was handed out to you. The law may be deemed as unconstitutionally vague and may also be found to involve the taking of property without due process. I was told, and I was speaking with someone who may speak later, that there was actually a case in Clay County in Alabama that was a federal case, and they threw it, and they deemed the ban unconstitutional. You know, I was one of the original persons here that addressed the fighting issue and the Mercedes Act of vicious dog. This state has done a good job of setting parameters that give our locals the tools they need to deal with the vicious or dangerous dogs, and I think that's what this breed-specific legislation is getting at. But instead of using those tools and doing what they need, they're not. And they keep going down this road of putting local ordinances in that are, quite frankly, I believe, everything that I believe against, which is taking away from my choice of being a responsible pet owner and owning a pet that I want and taking care of that pet in a responsible manner. And I can tell you that not every pit bull out there is some fighting dog that's running loose. There are responsible dogs. There are responsible, pet owners that have raised and have all kind of bulldogs, terriers, whatever they are, the different types of certain these breeds. They're responsible, and they're family dogs, and their pets. And so what we're seeing here is because you can't get any traction at the state level, you're seeing all of these policies are being pushed down to the local level through the animal control boards. Okay? Because they won't go here, because this General Assembly respects the rights of its citizens and the rights of those citizens to act in a responsible manner, especially as it comes to deciding what kind of pet they want to own. Basically, that's the bill. There are a lot of people here, especially some of the ones who are going to speak for the bill, who I think can add some more light as to, the meat and what's going on in other states that would give this committee some more information. I'll tell you one thing. We all, as a legislator, have all been up here long enough to know that a lot of people come up here and advocate. A lot of the lobbyists. In fact, one of the things that I was told when I came up here was that the good folks will tell you the pros and the cons to everything that you deal with. They won't leave you hanging. But I'll tell this committee, and I'm going to tell the rest of the General Assembly, that a lot of the issues that are going on and are being advocated towards the animal control and towards restricting, whether it be breed-specific bans, whether it be mandatory spay and neuter, you're getting one side of the story. You're getting one side of the story. And I'm going to tell you, there's a silent majority out there of responsible pet owners who quite frankly are waking up to seeing what's going on at the local level and seeing how their rights are being trampled on. And I would just ask that this committee be open to hearing some of that as we go forward and look at these serious policies that affect probably everyone on this board, because I'm sure probably the majority of the people here either currently own or at one point have owned dogs, so and cats for that matter, but have owned pets. And so with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll answer any questions. If not, I'll let some of the other folks get up and speak.
Thank you for that, Chairman Knight. Number 18, who we got there? Representative Fleming.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Knight, having dealt with that past legislation, I remember that with the vicious dog bill, so you're probably familiar with something referred to as the first bite rule. In other words, a dog owner generally is not responsible if the dog bites somebody if it's the first time they did it, because who knew the dog was vicious? And that made a lot of sense back in days when we had agricultural settings and people lived far away from one another. Of course, all that's changed now. If we did away with breed-specific regulations, would you also be willing to do away with the first bite rule? And what I mean by that is no longer will you get a free bite as a dog. In other words, the first time to bite somebody, the owner can be liable.
Well, I think to answer your question straight up, I'm not sure I would do away with the first bite, because everybody goes to vicious dogs, but we've had this discussion in this body, whether it be a Chihuahua that comes in and nips your leg, or another type of dog that thinks it's the biggest dog in the room but really isn't. So you've got some issues there. But I know in some of the past legislation that we've done, particularly the Mercedes law, there are things that we put out there that put people on warning. The Mercedes, again, I know there's been updates to that where there's been specific calls and all. You've put locals on knowledge that now all of a sudden there are different standards if you've run into an incident and been reported. So I think we've gotten into some of those issues without taking away with the first bite. However, again, I haven't looked at that law in a long time, but the best I remember, we had instances, and that was the issue with the Mercedes law. Animal control had been called out numerous times, but never could go when the owner was there. But yet there were instances where the dogs had chased the little girl, okay, and they never could do anything. Well, now, up under that bill, we took care of that such that with reported facts, they could come in and intervene, and all of a sudden now we had some tools to work with a dog that had been reported that had done some of these things. Okay.
All right. Thank you for that, Representative Kidd. Let's keep them brief and keep the answers brief. We've got a little clock here.
Right. I think you indicated that currently you think counties are doing a good job with the minimum standards. This bill reflects minimum standards. What are those minimum standards? State minimum standards?
Representative, I don't have the code in front of me, but I know that in the past we as a body have passed the dog fighting bill, and it puts in the definition of vicious and dangerous. We did away with dog fighting, then we did the dangerous and vicious dog bill. We've also done the animal cruelty and responsible dog owner bill.
I'll be very brief when because you don't have it in front of you. Do you think, as you stated, that you felt like counties were doing a pretty good job now?
No, I don't. I think we're not using the tools that we've given them. Right. Is what I'm thinking. I had one instance where Colonel Hitchens next to me a couple of years ago had a judge that did not want to take control of a dog that was a vicious dog and did not want to put it down and wanted him to carry some bill that mandated or something that he do it. But yet it was already in the code that he had the ability to take that dog and put it down.
Representative Brockway.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Knight, thanks for bringing this bill. And just a quick question: do we know how many counties and cities have breed-specific ordinances? I know, like in Gwinnett County, I live in unincorporated Gwinnett. Gwinnett is not breed-specific. City of Lawrenceville is. I
think College Park, Decatur, maybe, or DeKalb County had one, and I'm sure there's some people
Yeah, I'm just trying to get a sense, with a lot of cities, a lot of counties in the state, is this widespread?
Well, I think it's more widespread than you and I would think, because you really wouldn't know about this unless you were in a county that had it.
Okay.
And then the second thing is you're starting to see from these counties, you're starting to see more and more policy that's being dictated by these animal control boards, such as breed-specific or ordinances, or mandatory spay and neuter ordinances.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're starting, Representative, I think we've got more than what we think, but you're also starting to see this trend grow and grow and grow and grow.
Okay.
Thanks, number 27.
I'll waive.
You waive. Thank you so much. All right, we're going to listen to some testimony. I've got about 10 minutes for each side, and so I don't know how you really want to go with it, but Gail LaBerge, she's with the 4. Gail, are you here? I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people signed up, which means that basically you get 2 minutes. That Representative Knight. If you want, yeah, just
testify from the podium.
no. If you can from the podium.
Oh, okay. My name is Gail LaBerge, and I'm the president of the Georgia Canine Coalition. We are the AKC, the American Kennel Club's recognized federation on legislative issues for the state of Georgia. I have with me today Dr. Carmen Battaglia, who lives in Roswell, Georgia, and is a member of the board of directors of the American Kennel Club, and is an expert on dog issues and dog breeding. He works with the military, the working dog group at the University of Pennsylvania, and also with TSA on breeding better dogs and working on the dogs that they use to protect us in this country. We are in support of this bill. I can answer your question somewhat better. There are College Park, LaGrange, Lawrenceville, which, by the way, I live in unincorporated Gwinnett, and I know that Lawrenceville cannot enforce their ordinance because they have no animal control, and Gwinnett will not handle that for them. I understand that Fitzgerald also has breed-specific, including also Dawson County, Floyd, Terrell County, and a couple more that we've been working with, trying to convince this is not the way to go. Real quickly, I will tell you that we worked very long and hard on the 3 different bills that Representative Knight mentioned, the dangerous dog bill, the bill dealing with dog fighting, and last year the strengthening of the cruelty bill. We have given the tools to the counties and the cities, but they are not using them. Gwinnett County has just taken out all their dangerous and vicious dog ordinance and inserted the state's vicious and dangerous dog ordinance, because frankly it's a better piece of legislation, and that's what we'd like to encourage the counties and the cities to do. Instead of basing it on a particular breed that is difficult to identify, we'd like to see a generic across-the-board approach to defending our rights to be responsible owners while punishing those who need to be punished. The good doctor has a couple of things I'd like for him to mention to you. Carmen?
Thank you for giving me this opportunity. The American Kennel Club recognizes 183 recognized breeds, all of which exist here in the state of Georgia. We have over 123 dog clubs who meet monthly or quarterly. We have thousands of people who own these dogs, and we call them purpose-bred dogs because they're bred to either hunt, they're sporting dogs, herding dogs, working dogs, toys, terriers, and hounds. So all of those breeds have a specific function, and the test that was handed out, I think you've all had a chance to look at that. We've looked at that as well, and we find that shelter workers on average are unable to identify those breeds. So when we get to breed-specific issues, they usually make mistakes, which leads to lawsuits from their owners, which ties up to state courts and become very, very expensive. There has been an effort to develop a scientific test, which was developed by the Mars Company. That test has, however, failed to be admissible in court, and we, the AKC, do not recognize it because it is not DNA-based. So for those reasons, we find that breed-specific legislation hasn't worked. A few years ago, I wrote a paper called Bite and Who Bites. And in that attempt to identify what breeds bite more than other breeds, I went to the CDC, the police departments, and the veterinarian associations, because these are the groups that collect data on bite statistics. And I asked them, how do you identify in your statistics the breeds? And each of them said the victim or the person at the scene identifies the breed. Well, we know, for example, when we tested that a dog to you and me would look like a Dalmatian because it was white with spots. The victim would identify the dog as a collie. And the statistic would show that the collie did the biting. So we knew that we had real problems with our national statistics. CDC admits that the statistics are soft. The veterinary associations really don't put much stock in it. So when we get to breed-specific issues, there is no good way, a reliable way, that you can base a piece of legislation on that, because it just won't stand the test. I don't want to take up a lot of time. I just wanted to make that statement, and I'll answer
Anybody have a question?
Thank you.
Spell your last name for me.
B like Baker, Attagglia.
Very good.
Some people say Battaglia. I say Battaglia, the Italian way. Battaglia. See.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And next, we're kind of honored Lee Greenwood. He's proud to be an American.
That's quite an entrance, and I am about to let you down. I'm sorry. I am proud to be an American, but sadly I am not that Lee Greenwood. Good afternoon, Chairman Reinders, Vice Chair Brockway, and members of the committee. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Lee Greenwood. I'm an attorney with Best Friends Animal Society. Best Friends is an animal advocacy organization that works throughout the country to support legislation like SB 184. Our mission is to protect the interest of companion animals, dogs and cats, and the responsible people who care for them. Senate Bill 184 is an important piece of legislation because it would put an end to breed-based discrimination in Georgia. Breed discriminatory laws, which are sometimes called breed-specific laws, are a bad public policy solution for Georgia for three main reasons. First of all, and primarily, they infringe on all responsible pet dog owners' individual property rights. A responsible Georgian should be allowed to own and care for any type of dog he or she wants. Secondly, they are completely ineffective at protecting the public. Ordinances should focus on individual dogs and reckless owners. Irresponsible dogs owners of any breed should be held accountable. Zero exceptions, zero excuses. We absolutely support that. And third, finally, they are a waste of taxpayer dollars. It would cost, we have a fiscal impact calculator on our website done by independent economists, and we've estimated that it would cost nearly $15 million a year if Georgia enacted a statewide law similar to some of the laws that the local jurisdictions have passed. For all these reasons, a wide range of organizations have come out against breed-based discrimination, including the Georgia Hunting and Fishing Federation, the American Bar Association, the American Veterinary Medical Association, the National Animal Care and Control Association, which is the national group representing animal control officers, the United States Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the American Kennel Club, and countless others. In addition, according to a nationwide poll conducted by the Lund Global Group, 84% of Americans believe that a responsible pet owner should be permitted to own any breed of dog he or she wants. That's why 19 states have passed laws similar to 184, and we're really hoping that Georgia becomes the 20th. And I will just say on a personal note that as an Emory alum, and I work all over the country, but as an Emory alum, it would be very exciting for me if Georgia would become that 20th state, and I would love to see that happen. So we absolutely support SB 184. And if there's any questions, I would love to take them.
Mr. Greenwood,
Yes.
Would you support us doing away with our first bite rule in Georgia?
My organization, I don't believe, has taken a position on that, but certainly we would look at anything that's put forward. I would say that we do work with local jurisdictions all over the country and would love to work with some of the jurisdictions in Georgia to strengthen their dangerous and vicious dog laws, by making them more responsive to what the real problem is, which we all know is dangerous and irresponsible owners.
Thank you, Representative Fleming. Thank you, Mr. Greenwood, for your testimony today. Scott Tanner, you're the next contestant.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'll be very brief. I simply wanted to rise in support of SB 184. I'm here speaking on behalf of the Heritage and Wildlife Conservation Council. It's a landowners group, primarily in South Georgia. In total, this group owns about almost 250,000 acres of land, both private and commercially, primarily for the purpose of hunting. Therefore, we use all types of dogs. Mainly it's quail hunting, but there's a number of different people using different dogs, and we don't want to see any particular breed of dogs outlawed anywhere in the state. So I just wanted to give you the message that sportsmen are in favor of this bill and would certainly appreciate due pass. Thank you.
Thank you. Catherine Fleming. I'm sorry? No, and Ms. Fleming, in the interest of time, I said we'd do it evenly, so you kind of got a running clock.
Okay.
So this means...
Right. I will not take much time. Members of the committee, Mr. Chairman, thank you very much for taking testimony on this bill. I represent Georgia Municipal Association. My name is Catherine Fleming, and we are opposed to this bill as it stands. It's a preemption of our local ordinances. Cities have very good public safety reasons to choose to set ordinances by breed. Of the research I've done, of the fatalities related to dog attacks, this isn't bites, this is fatalities, over 50% of them in 2014 could be attributed to 2 specific breeds. So when a city chooses to regulate a certain breed to a higher standard than another one, they have good reasons to do so. A vicious 80-pound dog is very different from a vicious 3-pound dog. And while we would like to be able to regulate owner behavior probably even more, it's much easier to regulate by breed. GMA strongly believes that decisions regarding whether or not to regulate certain breeds should be made at the local level, and that if a citizen doesn't like the fact that their city has decided to outlaw or regulate a certain breed of dog, they should take that up with their city council or with their county commission. For these reasons, we would very kindly appreciate it if you could vote no to SB 184. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fleming. Any questions for Ms. Fleming? All right, we're lighting up a little bit like a small Christmas tree.
Okay.
Representative Williamson.
17.
Thank you.
Yes. Would GMA be amenable to the idea of mandating before municipality enacted a breed-specific rule or regulation or law, whatever the cities call it, that there would be mandatory that they had an anti-tethering rule in place first?
I am not familiar with what our stance is on anti-tethering for dogs, but I mean we would certainly be open to discussions on that. Sure.
Further question?
Yes.
Is it not true that the city of Monroe, Georgia, just like most cities in the state, had a lot of problems with children being bitten by aggressive breed dogs, and invariably it was dogs in the yard tethered by a chain or a rope with a stake in the ground, and once anti-tethering went in place in Monroe, Georgia, there has not been any attacks.
I'm not familiar with the situation in Monroe, Georgia, but what I would say is that questions about anti-tethering or breed-specific, those are decisions that should be made at the local level. And if that is the case in Monroe, Georgia, I hope other cities would look to that as an example of what they could do.
Thank you. Representative Hightower.
I think that's a much more appropriate approach to fixing this problem, is going after it in that manner. The problem that I have with being breed specific, especially towards pit bulls, I've owned pit bulls growing up throughout the years, and they are one breed that are very, very difficult to identify across the board. And when you go to just banning pit bulls, I think that you'd have an enforcement problem, because if you don't have dogs that are registered, it's going to be very difficult for you to decide on your local level, for a guy who's out trying to enforce this, which dogs are pit bulls or not pit bulls. Mm-hmm. And then if you typically, I don't have any study here, but I would surmise that those that take the time to register their dog are probably not going to be the ones that are going to be your typical people that are the problem, because they take the time to register dogs and are usually responsible owners. Mm-hmm. So I think you may just find yourself, the cities do these type ordinances. I think they'll probably find themselves in a situation in court where it's going to be almost impossible for them to enforce it, because they're going to have the burden of proving this is a pit bull, and I think it's going to be very difficult for them to do. I think they're going to be working against themselves. I think they're going to be putting ordinances in there that they can't really enforce.
And I'll tell you that in Lawrenceville, it's not just the random person saying that dog's a pit bull. They have a veterinarian that makes that determination. So it's someone who has had exposure to lots of dogs who makes the determination as to what the breed of the dog is. It wouldn't just be me going out there and looking at a bunch of dogs.
So the veterinarian goes out and makes that determination at the time they give the citation?
Puts them up on the street.
My guess is that I am not an expert on Lawrenceville's ordinances, but I'm happy to get you a copy of it, and which details how that happens.
I'm just saying the enforcement aspect is the person on the street. And that seems very tough, because the veterinarian you're talking about would come after the fact, I would think. If you just follow logic there, the veterinarian's not going to be out on the street with the enforcement person, I would not think. And so the enforcement person, whoever that is out there having to make a judgment call. Well, that looks like a pit bull.
Thank you. Representative Taylor.
Mr. Chairman, what this goes to me is, it's like ownership of a car or a firearm or anything. It goes back to personal responsibility of taking responsibility for what you own, what you drive, what you shoot. I own a car. If I don't run somebody over with it, I'm responsible. Some people do. The other thing, and Representative Knight, and I've got a hunting club in your district or close to your district, we get a lot of dumping down there of dogs because of these things, and we deal with feral dog packs at our hunting club because of this. And I just want to say, as a veteran, I've worked with dogs that take IEDs and things like this. And if you want to, they are sometimes mixed breed, because you put strains together that are good at certain things. And I would just say again, with the identification issues and all, I think this is just a little bit too vague and a little bit too dangerous for us right now.
Thank you, Representative Taylor. Number 11, is that you, Chairman Powell? One of the Powell twins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Could you tell me, do you know of anywhere where there's been any court cases that's been filed on account of this?
I'm not familiar with that.
So can you also say how many cities other than in Georgia around the country that started banning dogs based on breed?
I'm not sure how many cities in Georgia are banning based on breed. I do know that we have a few that are regulating based on breed. So they might hold an owner to a higher standard in terms of if they have a specific type of dog.
So when you say regulating, like a dachshund or a poodle may come under different standards than another type of a dog.
Then a dog whose breed has a history of killing people. Yes.
Thank you, Chairman Allen. Chairman Powell. We're going to let ACCG speak a little bit.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm Todd Edwards with the Association of County Commissioners of Georgia. We also have concerns with this legislation, as many bills that have come before us in the past several years that dealing with preempting local governments on animal control issues. First of all, animal control, setting it up in a county is it's an option for counties. A lot of counties don't have it. Those that do are come under extreme pressure to form it, kind of like going away from agricultural to a county that has zoning. Somewhere in the development, as suburbanization or commissioners, counties get more folks in there, they come under pressure to implement these laws. I can tell you, and you talk to the county commissioners, it's one of the least favorite issue areas for them to get into. It's politically, emotionally charged. It's very expensive, and it's not decisions they make rather easily or at all. There were some questions raised earlier. I don't know any counties, to be frank, and there were two listed. I don't know if Floyd was one of them. Do they have are they banned based on breed? I was unaware of that. I know that these issues have been brought up Douglas County a couple of years ago, but ultimately we elect county commissioners and local folks to make these decisions. And there were issues that raised where it would be costly to counties, unfair to responsible owners, financial hardship. Those are all legitimate issues. I can't argue with that. But those are issues that rest with the county commissioners, your city council members that are elected, that have taken the road of implementing animal control ordinances and do these for not only public safety reasons, but because they come under the pressure from their local officials to do so. It's not a lighthearted decision they make. A lot of them wish they weren't in the position to make it, but that's why they are there. And the more we encroach, preempt, or get into animal control at the General Assembly, I would caution that you too will come under that same political pressure. It's not something any of us want. It's a matter of necessity. It's a matter of public safety, and it's reacting to public sentiment in these areas. I can't argue again based on from what I've heard today that restricting us from basing on breed is a bad idea, but where does that stop? Are we going to tethering? What sort of amendments will come up here? Where does it stop for the animals or for the local governments in charge of and those responsible for paying for animal control? With that, Mr. Chairman, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions for ACCG and Mr. Edwards? I see none. All right. I know that I've heard rumor there's an amendment or 12 or 2 out there. So at this time, what is the pleasure of the committee? We've got a motion to pass. Do I have a second? Second. Got a second. All right. Discussion. Not recognized for that purpose. Second. All right. We got a second. Let's go ahead and talk about them. Representative Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In reviewing this, I see a little issue I would like to address, and it's on line 16. Where the last word regulation, I would like to see if the author would mind exchanging it for the word prohibition instead of regulation. It just seems to fit better.
I apologize. I'm not sure I've got the original.
The last
word on line 16.
Change from regulation to prohibition.
Well, I am not Senator. I mean, I'm not the author.
I'm going to let you speak on him on his behalf because we don't really have a choice.
But you know, no, I think I think regulation is a better term because I think I'll be honest with you. I think that covers regulation covers a lot of things, and I can see going outside of prohibiting something and then saying, okay, we're not going to prohibit it, but we're going to regulate it to death. In essence, you're going to go and do the same thing that you would do by prohibiting, but you'll just do it a death by 1,000 cuts by regulating it.
Well, that's one of my issues with it. It seems like it's very broad.
Well,
yeah.
And again, to my friend and fellow representatives on this board, I think that you're not hearing the whole story of what's going on out there. And and Mr. Chairman, I appreciate the hearing on this, but there's a lot that's going on out there.
Well, let me help you with that. I'm going to be real honest with the members of the committee. We had to make a decision today on whether to make this exclusive to the bill itself or to open it up to the committee process and let amendments fly as they may. I mean, but you do that because there is a lot of issues. And I don't want to go into the details because it could, frankly, flavor some. The problem is some communities, one size doesn't fit all. And that causes heartburn. And for others that do it right, you don't want to punish them. So that's why we're going to go through the committee process. But thank you so much for that.
I have an additional concern, and it had to do with
Did you offer prohibition as an amendment?
Yes, I did.
Do we have a second on that?
Second.
We got seconds. All right. We got lit up, and I don't know if the purpose of that was I'm going to cut them all off. We've got seconds on that. Is there discussion on that particular amendment? All right. We're going to go with 18. Representative Fleming.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll just a scrivener's note that if you're going to change the word on line 16 to prohibition, you'll want to strike on line 17 the words which and classifies. It makes it read properly, I believe.
Thank you.
You agree with that, Jeff?
I certainly think it's a better reading.
Okay. All right. We'll do that. And then if we get what you want. And next we'll go to Representative Hightower.
I would agree with Chairman Knight. I think regulation is a much better term there. I think prohibition is going to limit the bill to not really do what we're trying to do, which is allow this to be a much broader term. I think prohibition is going to be very limiting on this bill.
All right. Thank you. Any questions? Number 23. Who we got there?
Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Representative Brockway.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm speaking purely on selfish reasons. My city of Lawrenceville feels that if we change it to go with the amendment, that they won't have to change their ordinance. So that's my selfish reason for supporting the
So you're doing constituency work here?
Absolutely, sir.
All right.
Absolutely.
Chairman Powell?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If I read that by striking regulation, putting prohibition, would that not be a catfish amendment? Wouldn't that, in fact, just sort of gut the whole purpose of...
As you taught me many years ago, that's for each and every member to decide for themselves. Can you teach me that? All right, we're going to take a vote on this particular amendment. We've got the prohibition by Taylor, seconded by Minnie, striking out regulation on line 16, which also comes with with striking out which classifies. All those in favor of the Taylor amendment will signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? No. Ayes clearly have it. That amendment passes. Is there another amendment we want to talk about? No other amendments? Okay. We got a motion to move to table. Who made the motion? And there's a second down there. All right, we got a motion move to table. It takes precedent. All those in favor of tabling say aye. Aye. Do I need to even ask? Those opposed, no like sign? So we were better off holding this in the committee like we did all year. Is that what y'all telling me? All right. Senate Bill 184, tabled. Thank you. Yes. What number?
When this comes back up, I don't think any of us on the committee really know what the existing law is. If it comes back up, I'd like for all of us to be able to have the opportunity to see what the existing law is. And by tabling, it gives us a chance to go back home and find out what our county is like it or not. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Representative.